So, Chelsea beat Spurs at the Spurs Stadium 4-3 yesterday. I almost said 4-2. It was 4-3, late goal. And the game went in a fairly predictable pattern if you've been watching Spurs recently. Yes, I know I'm loading it up in the Chelsea or the Spurs attacking phase, first of all, which I never usually do. I use it with two teams on either side. I may have recorded an entire video where I forgot to press record. So I'm a little bit frustrated, and I kind of now want to get this over and done with as quick as possible and try and not let my frustrations show. There's no point being frustrated. It's only me that's been an idiot. But there we go, I digress. Do you care? Probably not, but that's why it looks like this. And Spurs led early in the game 2-0. Chelsea then fought back to 4-2, and Spurs grabbed a consolation with near enough the last kick of the game. And it was just really predictable. It was really just Spursy. I don't mean to use that terminology, but weak, easy to play against, silly mistakes, and it's not looking good for Ange at this point. It really isn't. I think he's under some serious pressure, and rightly so, because they're the most unpredictable team in the league, Spurs. Their only predictability is that they're unpredictable. 4-0 against City, but gift Ipswich their only win of the season, gives Palace their first win of the season, lose to Bournemouth, and then get turned over by Chelsea. I don't know which one is the surprising and which one is actually where their level is at this current point in time, because anything's possible. I think they're paying the prices for poor recruitment in the summer. I think their squad is horrifically unbalanced. They are trying to square pegs some round holes, and it isn't working. But full credit to Chelsea, full credit to Enzo Maresca, made a tactical change that won the game for Chelsea, and it was a brave change when you consider the current state of the game. And you can't fault anything Maresca is doing. That's an appointment I will admit I was wrong on. Did not rate the appointment. I don't think anyone did really. And he has proven me wrong in style. He's been fantastic for Chelsea. Tactically top notch. His ability to get players on side and get top performances out where they hadn't displayed that before. It's the perfect managerial reign so far. But Spurs' attacking shape, we'll get right into it now. And so again, no variation, no real change from how Spurs played. It was the fullbacks inverting centrally alongside Basuma, leaving very little width, making it easy for Chelsea to press them and congest them in the centre of the pitch. The only real player with technically resistant quality was Basuma to play round, but with the players around him, there was no real support, and it didn't really feel like he had much to hit because of the close proximity of the players made him easier to press from a Chelsea point of view. And we didn't see his press resistant quality, his passing quality enough to get Spurs up the pitch. Also, not having Maddison, as we know, there's a bit of relationship on this side with the doggy and Maddison. The doggy will move further up, allowing Maddison to drop into this sort of left back position here. But again, Sarr isn't the technical player that Maddison is, and he struggled to progress the ball from these positions. Also, the movements between him and Udogie weren't really connecting. At points they ended up on top of each other a lot, and it became a bit of a mess on that side really with these two. I say just no real connection, no real quality, and Chelsea prevented them from playing out really well. They pressed them high, man for man, and would adapt as the play went on. Palmer onto Van der Ven, Jackson onto Romero would press across to the keeper when the pass would go there, while shielding the pass back to Romero or Dragazin, as it became after about 10-15 minutes. Sancho and Porro, Neto on Udogie, and they would track those runs if they moved further up into the half spaces. Enzo Fernandez on Basuma, Lavia onto Sarr, and Colwill marking Kulusevski in this area, engaging from his centre-back position to mark the midfielder. Badiashile on Solanke, in a one-on-one sense, Cucurella on Johnson, Caicedo on Son. So again, completely man-to-man, would look to win the ball back quickly, aggressively, and had some success doing it, and just tenacious. And full credit to Chelsea, they really adopted a strong man-to-man pressing system in recent weeks. And Colwill as the aggressor centre-back works really well. There was some frailties in this, namely Badiashile and Solanke. In the second half, he made a change to move Badiashile across and then have Colwill onto Solanke, who dealt with him a lot better. And in the first half, Solanke was able to use his back-to-goal play and his shielding to hold off Badiashile and play round him. And it was excellent from him, and connect with Son and Johnson in these areas and get into the box and score all running off the back of him. In the second half, as I say, he didn't have a kick. Colwill defended him excellently, and Chelsea as a structure were a lot sounder in the second half. But first half, Solanke did cause problems, and it is important to say that. Chelsea would also manage situations really well, so once that initial press was beaten and Spurs moved on into their second phase of build-up, they would drop off a little bit, and this is how it would look. And I say drop off a little bit, it would be with Colwill moving in to be that +1, Enzo Fernandez moving into Kulusevski, and Palmer dropping off into Basuma, and Jackson would manage the space in between the two centre-backs. And as a result, Chelsea managed these situations fairly well, if it wasn't for a few mistakes from someone at left back. And I say it just contains Spurs a great deal. The only real method of play they had to play out with was on this left-hand side, and because of the lack of midfield quality to play through, Van der Ven was left on the ball a lot, and sometimes his only option with the Dogi and Sarr coming in centrally was to play it round the outside to Son, who would show for the ball and would have to deal with the overly aggressive Caicedo, who would look to come up, charge and press from behind and win the ball back as quick as possible. The only problem is, against a player like Son, who is as intelligent and streetwise as they come, he could use that to his advantage, slip it round the corner, use a quick movement to beat Caicedo's press, link up with Solanke, who again used his back-to-goal play, shielding Badiashile off in the first half, and they could link up and create chances down this side and get in that way. Caicedo would then struggle to get back into position quickly enough. Also, his overly aggressive nature should have earned him a red for a mental challenge on, I think it was Pape Matar Sarr, I think. Pretty sure it was anyway, going far too high, needlessly reckless challenge when he thought it was on there once Son laid it off to him. And they say was lucky to stay on the pitch after the first half, but Spurs had a player that was lucky to stay on the pitch first half, so we'll cover that. So as much as Anthony Taylor gets the Chelsea bias, he made poor decisions everywhere, to be honest. No one got the real rub of the green in this game. So that was the one place they could play out. Also, if the pass to Solanke wasn't on, and Colwill and Cucurella covered round, and Cucurella, while doing so, slipped over, Johnson had space on the right-hand side to play crosses through to Solanke or maybe to Son far post, or give freedom to Kulusevski, who could turn inside and produce a really good finish past Sanchez. And so that was their only real method of attack. Other than that, Chelsea kept him contained really well. And in the second half, they got a little bit better once they subbed Maddison on. They added a bit more technical quality on that right-hand side to play through. And just, as I say, to have a bit more quality on the pitch to hurt Chelsea, but it came too little too late. And as a result, Chelsea can be proud of their defensive efforts as much as it was losing 3 goals in the back of their own net. Blame Cucurella's skate shoes for that. I wonder if that person in the comment section from the last Chelsea video has seen that and it's going to be back today. I look forward to your comments, mate. See you in a bit. But now on to the Chelsea attack. Chelsea would build up in a sort of 4-4-3 because Sanchez would play an integral role in the build-up, spreading the remaining back 3 wide. As Badiashile moved into right back, Colwill left centre back, Cucurella left back, Caicedo would invert into midfield alongside Lavia. Enzo Fernandez and Cole Palmer high up in the 8, Neto and Sancho pinning the fullbacks back with Jackson as the striker. Spurs would go kind of man-to-man, and it was a really, really poorly orchestrated press, I think, from Spurs. Whatever the intention was not seen in any real good effect on this game. And that would be with Son and Johnson starting out a little bit deeper, but then moving onto Badiashile and Cucurella once that press was on. Solanke marking Colwill, but would come across to Sanchez to try and block him from getting the ball. And because they were only reactively in the press, it felt like that Badiashile and Cucurella had time to pick the passes out and play forward. Sarr and Kulusevski pressing onto the back of Lavia and Caicedo. But again, another issue is that Lavia is fantastic technically. He can resist the press really well and play balls around the corner. And in the first 10-15 minutes, it did cause Chelsea some problems. And the main reason for that is the back 3 was spread so wide. And so if Sanchez wasn't a part of it, then there was a massive gap for Spurs to play into if Chelsea lost the ball, which obviously they did when Cucurella decided to start slipping. And one pass in this area, and they were basically through. If Son could collect the ball through an errant pass, he was through on goal. And so it was a risk by Chelsea. It's a risk they played with all season, and it did cost them a little bit. It didn't go on to cost them the 3 points, but on another day it could have. But as I say, after that first 10-15 minutes, Spurs' press dried up. It was really poor, dropped off far too much, weren't engaging, unless it was Kulusevski trying to knock the hell out of Lavia. And as a result, Chelsea could get time and play. So with Lavia using his quality on the ball, having a bit more time to play forward. Enzo Fernandez and Cole Palmer coming out into these positions here to receive the ball, which caused all sorts of problems for Basuma, who was left isolated in between the lines in the defensive midfield position. Had to remain central, couldn't come too far wide to mark Palmer, couldn't come too far wide to mark Enzo Fernandez. If they were both a little bit more central, then Cole Palmer felt like his more desired target, but again, couldn't really get near him without leaving the threat of Enzo Fernandez too free. And it was easy. It was easy at points for Chelsea to get the ball in the centre area of the pitch. Whether it was an intention for Romero and then later draggers in to engage in these areas, it wasn't seen as frequently. When their press was better, you'd see what turned out to be draggers in later in the game because Romero went off injured, engaging more in these areas and doubling up with Basuma, which for me implies an issue of playing for the manager. It felt like they weren't as willing to go and put those hard yards in and pressing the player that had come too far out in too much space and risk leaving it in behind. And I just thought when it was good and when they had momentum, you'd see it a lot more. In general play, it wasn't. And Basuma struggled badly in between these two. Very little he could do. He was outnumbered. But as I say, Enzo Fernandez and Cole Palmer getting the ball in these areas. More so Enzo Fernandez because Cole Palmer was stunted a little bit. They couldn't really play through to Palmer on this side because Badiashile at right centre back isn't as technically proficient as the left side was with Lavia and Cucurella to find Palmer in these areas. So him and Neto were a bit of a non-factor in the first half, and Enzo Fernandez was able to get the ball, collect it, turn, and play through Sancho, play through Jackson, and get the attacks going that way. And he was excellent, Enzo Fernandez, as he's been for the last few weeks, just finding the space in this area to attack that back line, causing Romero to gamble or causing Draggers into gamble to then create space for Jackson or cause Porro to narrow up. And that was, again, an option from deep if the right centre-back did decide to engage Enzo in this area, is how does the rest of the defence respond? Do they then go long and find Jackson, who could peel off of Van der Ven into the space created to find him with the long ball, where he could use to stretch defence and get chances away? Or if Pedro Porro narrows up, then that leaves the space for Jadon Sancho, who did a fantastic job of collecting the ball in these wide areas, looking for the half-space runs of Enzo Fernandez, looking for the runs of Nicholas Jackson down deep to then create these opportunities. And Sancho and Fernandez on that side were excellent. Sancho's wide playmaking was brilliant. He also got a goal in the first half through, again, that space and that sort of right centre midfield, left centre midfield position for Chelsea being exposed by him getting the ball out wide, Enzo Fernandez making that run in deeper, creating space on the edge of the box, Basuma being too concerned with Cole Palmer's positioning, so Sancho had free rein to run across in front of the defence, get on the edge and produce a lovely finish into the far corner. But its vision to find the runs, is cute little passes in between the lines, was quite frustratingly good, because everyone knows I'm not the biggest Sancho fan, for very obvious reasons. And as much as it was good and Spurs struggled with it in the first half, the second half, Chelsea made changes that made it even better. In the second half, he made a change to bring Caicedo on for Lavia, which was a little bit controversial. Lavia, I thought, was fantastic in the first half. But what this did was it dropped Enzo Fernandez back into a deeper position, Malo Gusto into his right-back position that could invert alongside or tuck in alongside the back three. It was very adaptable. It could be a 3-2 or a 2-3, as we're seeing here. Cucurella was given more room to move up into the attack and left half space, where his energy and his movement created a lot more space for Sancho, because while he wasn't going to be picked up in that area with Basuma sticking to Palmer, this then created more space for Sancho to move inside and find those passes, whether that be to Cucurella or into that left channel that could then create movement for Palmer, Jackson, even Caicedo and Fernandez if they decided to make deep runs from midfield, which led to the first penalty and led to Enzo Fernandez's goal with the space that Cucurella could create through his half-space runs. And it also got better players, I feel like, in the more deeper technical positions. Enzo Fernandez getting on the ball deeper in this area was able to use his fantastic passing range to be able to play it over to the opposite side to Neto or to Palmer, who could stretch a little bit wide, overwhelm Udogie, as Basuma wouldn't really want to come too far over to this side and risk leaving the middle of the pitch completely free. And so Enzo Fernandez found him with a few pinpoint passes a couple times and excellently exposed them. Also, Malo Gusto being at this right centre-back position was at a higher technical level to be able to play through this side into Neto or into Palmer, who in the second half were a lot more instrumental in Chelsea's success. And as a result, with Chelsea running away with it in the second half, those two getting on the ball, especially Cole Palmer in this area to attack this space with the movement of Neto around him, resulted in a lot more positive and a lot more excellent play from a Chelsea perspective, and just a small tactical change, a brave tactical change, and it paid dividends. And you've got to give Enzo Maresca credit for that. He adapted excellently. They weren't in a bad position going into the second half, but still made a change that completely turned the game on its head. Spurs again dropped off far too much. Sporadically engaged in a proper press. We get Draggers in moving out into Cucurella in this area here, but nowhere near as consistent, and it was too erratic. And the space that they were leaving the deeper players on the ball to find some of the passes, the passes were excellent, but when you're given time and space to do it, you're risking that with quality players. And bar Son, it felt like a real lack of effort, and he's the one that would try and track back. If Cole Palmer got the ball here, he'd make a gut buster run to try and win the ball back quickly and play it forward and try and get Spurs on the attack. You take Son out, there was a real lack of intensity from the team. Silly fouls for the penalties from Basuma and Sarr. Silly moments from players all over the pitch. Silly decisions to play Van de Ven and Romero nowhere near fitness. And as a result, you can't moan at anyone bar Spurs and bar Ange. And I think there's a potential big move coming for Ange. I don't see this continuing. I don't think it can continue. And as much as I love Ange, as I said at the start of the video, as much as everyone loves Ange, this isn't sustainable. And eventually it ends one way. But who knows? A League Cup run could save him just about, but it's still a tough competition to win with the teams left in. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Like the video if you like it, dislike it if you disliked it, comment down below and tell me why either way, and subscribe if you want to see more. In a bit, lads.